Hi everybody, this is my walk to work. So I'm going to take you along all of the things that I see when I walk to work. First, I'd like to start with where my office is. From my house, my office is at the base of this building. This is called Saigon Center. This is the city center. This below here is a park, and then the area I live in. In order to get to my office, I'm going to walk down this street, along this path of trees, and eventually I'm going to turn. I'm going to go through the park area and up to this building. I do not work in this building, but very close. To give you a bit more context, the area I live in is called District 3, and it can be very crowded. As you can see, there are not that many trees, and it goes on and on. But right next to District 3 is the historic District 1, which starts with the park and within the park area. So, first I will walk through District 3, and then I will walk into District 1. District 1 has lots of the old buildings from the French colonial administration, and District 3 has lots of old villas that the colonialists lived in. So I was standing at the top of the building I live in. That's there. And this is the building I live in. This is the street around my house. It's very interesting. Lots of people sleeping, resting on their motorbikes. Motorbikes everywhere. Makeshift vehicles, people wearing their cone hats. It's actually true. Okay. All right, and now I will walk. This is the first historic site I come across. This is a statue to the monk who burned himself in protest during the war. So he has a park here. This is the actual location of him burning himself here on this street corner. You can kind of recognize this wall in the famous photo. So that's the actual pagoda to where he was. And he has this park. So you will remember him from the cover of the Rage Against the Machine album. So here in District 2, you can't see it, but this was a very big French chateau that they're now rebuilding. Here you can see another older French time building, and there'll be many of them. Because in District 3 we have many buildings like that. And they're renovating them now, turning them into hotels and restaurants and all sorts of stuff. So I've walked 4 blocks from where I took the last video, and this is the War Museum. Outside the War Museum they have a lot of military equipment from the US War, like that is a helicopter. There's some difficult to see fighter jets over there. And there's some stuff, so that's the War Museum. I'm just going to walk really quickly around this corner and show you this is an old school, like an old French school. It's hard to see. That building's old colonial architecture, but there's that. And we're going to go up, and I'm going to make a right at that corner, and then I'll turn into the park area. This is a normal little shrine to Buddha that may be on the street anywhere. I don't really know more about that. School. It is still a school. It's like a high school, and I have some people doing the landscaping. So I already turned right, and now I'll be going into what I was calling the park area, and it's actually very close to the palace of the French, and then the palace of the Southern government. And then as we go in this area, you'll see more public service announcements. It's a nice word for those. And now, as you can tell, it's starting to rain. People are putting on their raincoats on their motorbikes. So there's this very big park area. When I walk I always think that this is the quiet area. I have this long stretch with no intersections, So while walking, I got caught in the rain. This is the park area, and you can see how hard it rains in Vietnam. At the end of the park is a very large kind of presidential palace. It's called the Independence Palace. If you come to over here, you see some tanks. These are the tanks that were used at the end of the war to get the presidential palace to surrender. And now there's a little tourist cart going around that takes you around the property. This is actually a very big park. Yeah. So over here is a cafe. This is actually the cafe where I go every morning on my way home. But this building was once part of the Independence Palace. And now this is the cafe where I get coffee. I'm going to walk down this street to this big boulevard over here. And everyone is still wearing their raincoats. These barbed wire fences are all over the city. They're set up along the street in case anybody protests. They'll just set those up immediately. Courthouse. It's actually a very big, old-style French-era courthouse. Actually very, very big. And it's still used. It's still used. And it wraps around like this and over there. I guess then this is right in the center of the city. If we turn around, we have some government buildings. This is still the same street that the palace was on. So you have this courthouse on the same street. Now we're on the corner and there's another old palace. That's now the city museum. Interestingly, when Trinh was young, this is a banyan tree, meaning that the vines grow down and become part of the root. When Trinh was young, her dad told her that there was a monster under this tree, and she's still a little bit afraid of this tree. So this is the palace for the last king of Vietnam, who died in France in the 90s. Now that building in front of us right there, that's the building I was pointing at before. The one that I said my office is right behind this building. So I'm actually going to take you on a little detour down this way to see a few buildings, then we'll come back. So our last video I was way down there on that corner. And I'm showing you this is where the Starbucks is that I often go in the morning. My work is actually 1 block, 2 blocks down there, down that way. That up here is the very top of the building that I keep referencing, so we're still very downtown. This is part of a huge downtown hotel that was used by the American military for like their base, like their command base, and it's right next to this very huge, long city hall. Now I'll walk a bit through here. Now I'm standing in the middle of a park. You can see a statue of Ho Chi Minh, some people taking a photo here, that old French building. This brings us to the Opera House, which is right here. And behind the Opera House they're building a metro, like a subway. You can see some construction workers walking somewhere. This is a very big, flat, open park. And again, this is that tall building that my office is next to. So my office will be right there. From here I would just go a few more blocks in and then I'd walk along those buildings until I made it to over there. Walking in the rain. I actually would not normally walk here because, as you know, it's 2 blocks away from where I need to be, but I just wanted to show you how central the downtown location is. Yes. So in this building, we're still on the park. We were there, now we walk to here. This building is actually where I had my first date with Trinh. It was right there where you see these banks now. That that was a restaurant. But and every year Trin and I used to go there on our anniversary. So we've been there 4 times on our anniversary, and sit in the same place where we sat before. But now that's over. Anyway, moving on, you have this very modern building here. Very modern building here. This is a building that used to be all apartments, and when Trin was young, she would go to her friends' birthday parties at this big apartment building. But when this became a park in 2014, this was a street, all of the apartments became cafes. So it's very cool. Okay, now we'll take the last steps down to the office. My office is on this street. Okay, so that's it, Arizona State University. The office is here. I sit right there in that window. So I'll add a time lapse of how I walk through that building. However, that time lapse will start with me standing over here. So there's that tall building I kept referencing. And you go behind it 1 block. There's the office. And this is how I walk to work. And Trin and her mom are at a grocery store. A fancy grocery store. Ooh, that's the word cheese, and fromage, like fromage. Here's all the fromage. And all the fromage was all for us. It's like a little New York emporium. Meats. 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 Vino. Stuff. Trin looking at fromage. Em ăn nhưng em có cay rẻ. Đúng rồi, rất mà. Trin ăn phô mai không? Oh, rất mắc. Rất mắc. Trin không ăn này được không? Oh, xin lỗi. Ăn đi. Xin lỗi vì em nói rất mắc. Mình cho cô. Nếu cô thích, cô vui về đi.
Nó có cái loại này là
Yeah, for my yeah. They're discussing if they want goat cheese. But this little piece of cheese is $10. Look at Trin go and buy stuff at the market. Trin at the market.